Good morning. On behalf of the Australian team, I've prepared a cybersecurity risk assessment for the Chief Information Security Officer. As instructed, the risk assessment will cover aspects of the Five Eye Global Economic Summit. The Australian cyber team conducted a risk assessment in response to a cybersecurity incident. The key points are outlined in the slide. The incident took place at the Five Eye Summit and the Australian network was brought down. The attack originated from the Summit network and data exfiltration was detected. Because the attack originated from the Summit network, currently hosted by a Five Eyes ally, the other nation servers are at risk. The goals from the risk assessment were to identify the current security controls, discuss the vulnerabilities, and recommend strategies to prevent similar attacks from taking place. We'll start by identifying the current security controls and protections. The Australian cyber team implemented security protections by ensuring physical, technical, and administrative security controls were used. The physical controls included summit security, device protections, and personnel safety. The technical controls covered network security, data protection, and software security. And the administrative controls cover personnel training, cybersecurity policies, and legal analysis of the Five Eye Summit. Next, we'll review the security controls in detail. For physical security, we are mitigating against personnel safety risk, damage to devices, and loss of storage devices. The personnel safety risk is transferred to the host of the summit, and the local authorities can always be called in case of emergency. The physical devices used by Australian employees are at risk of being physically damaged or stolen, and that would result in a loss of operations for users at the summit. The devices will include cell phones, laptops, and tablets. The physical devices may contain sensitive data, and a loss or theft of hardware devices would also result in a loss of data. Any physical loss of devices would be a loss of data, resulting in a potential loss of confidentiality and integrity. To mitigate that risk, we've encrypted all data at rest on the physical devices. So regardless of theft or loss, the data on those devices will still be protected by the encryption. For technical controls, we focus on network security, software security, and data protection. The internet access will be provided by the Five Eye host, so we focus on hardening the user's connection to HQ. To harden network security, we incorporated a VPN, mandatory SSL, TLS protocols on workstations, a spam and ad blocker, and we enabled whitelist sites only to control internet access. For software security, we ensured all software was up to date and approved by company policies. We also installed antivirus software, endpoint protection, and we limited the privileges users had on their devices. Data protection was incorporated by encrypting data in transit, enforcing digital certificates, hardening user passwords, and enforcing two-factor authentication. For administrative controls, we focus on personnel training, legal analysis, and cybersecurity policies. The personnel training given to Australian employees attending the summit covered social engineering, malicious links in email, digital certificates, malware, insider threats, and confidentiality of data. The legal analysis was conducted on the cybersecurity laws of the Five Eye Nations, and a comparison was done to identify significant differences in protections. National policies or frameworks were also reviewed that applied to cybersecurity. Finally, we incorporated company cybersecurity policies into all of our implemented controls to include separation of duties, protection of confidentiality, integrity and availability of data, also known as CIA, Two-factor authentication, chain of custody practices, and federal compliance were also taken into consideration when implementing security controls. After the cybersecurity incident took place, we took a look at all of our current security controls, as we just discussed, and we were able to identify some vulnerabilities. For physical, there is a lack of spare devices. If a workstation breaks or is lost, that user would not have a workstation to work with anymore. For technical, the HQ server lacks redundancy or protection against denial of service. This attack took place and it brought down the Australian server, so we're clearly lacking a way to mitigate that. For administrative, the Five Eye partners lack a joint cyber incident plan. We prepared a legal analysis beforehand and shared it with the Five Eye partners, but this incident took place and there wasn't very much communication among the teams. So working out a way to communicate with each other in preparation for the Five Eye Summit sounds like a great idea. So based upon the vulnerabilities we discovered, and as I just mentioned, we have some vulnerabilities that were identified. So our recommendations to mitigate those are to purchase extra hardware devices to mitigate operational loss from device damage or theft, incorporate denial of service protection for HQ server to include rapid response to attacks from IDP, IPS notification, and a backup server. And finally, open a line of communication with other cyber teams to quickly respond to a Five Eye Global Summit cyber incident. And that concludes our cybersecurity analysis. If you have any questions, I can answer them now. I've also placed my point of contact on the slide. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll show my references in the next slide as well.